This week on Christian World News.
For the sake of Zion, I will not be silent. For the sake of Jerusalem, I will not be still. Until her justice shines bright and her salvation glows like a flaming torch.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls on the world to join the fight against radical Islam.
Plus, protesters take over Hong Kong streets. Hear about the church's role in this bid for greater freedoms.
And they were called the Lost Boys, young men who fled the atrocities of Sudan's civil war. Now their story comes to the big screen. Welcome, everyone, to Christian World News. I'm Wendy Griffith.
And I'm Ephraim Graham. George Thomas is on assignment. Join the fight against radical Islam. That's what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told the United Nations General Assembly Monday.
As CBN News' Chris Mitchell reports, Netanyahu also sees a new alignment in the Middle East that could bring peace to Israelis and Palestinians.
Throughout his speech, Netanyahu warned the world of the rise of militant Islam.
Everywhere we look, militant Islam is on the march.
Some felt Netanyahu's address harkened back to the warnings of England's Winston Churchill. In the 20th century, Churchill warned about the totalitarian threat of Hitler's Nazi fascism. Now in the 21st century, Netanyahu says the threat is militant Islam.
Militant Islam's ambition to dominate the world seems mad. But so too did the global ambitions of another fanatic ideology that swept into power 8 decades ago. The Nazis believed in a master race. The militant Islamists believe in a master faith.
Netanyahu said militant Islam in all its forms, from Hamas to ISIS, share the same ideology.
They all seek to create ever-expanding enclaves of militant Islam, where there is no freedom and no tolerance, where women are treated as chattel, Christians are decimated, and minorities are subjugated, sometimes given the stark choice: convert or die.
While Netanyahu agreed ISIS presents a clear and present danger, the greater threat, he says, is a nuclear Iran.
ISIS must be defeated. But to defeat ISIS and leave Iran as a threshold nuclear power is to win the battle and lose the war.
In the midst of these dangers, Netanyahu noted a new alignment with Arab countries is forming in the Middle East, an alliance that offers hope for peace between Israelis and Palestinians.
And therefore, to achieve that peace, we must look not only to Jerusalem and Ramallah, but also to Cairo, to Amman, Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, and elsewhere.
Netanyahu ended his speech with the scripture from the book of Isaiah about the need to speak truth in an age of lies for the sake of Jerusalem.
For the sake of Zion, I will not be silent. For the sake of Jerusalem, I will not be still. Until her justice shines bright and her salvation glows like a flaming torch.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
CBN News senior editor John Waggy is with us now for more. John, hearing that scripture read was so powerful, wasn't it? It's amazing.
Yes,
well, Netanyahu made it a point to talk about the danger that radical Islam poses to Christians. Why did he do that?
Well, I think because in a lot of places around the world, Wendy, people have lost sight of that. And I think that what he was saying very clearly and very eloquently in that speech is that Judeo-Christian values are under assault from radical Islam. And it isn't just Israel's trying to swim against the tide. They're after the entire world. And that is something that he feels the need to hammer home again and again.
John, why don't other world leaders talk like Netanyahu?
Very good question, Wendy. But you know, he hearkened back to Winston Churchill, and others have too. I think Netanyahu sees himself as a kind of Churchill. And the reason being that Churchill spoke out for a good 15 years about the evils of Hitler before anyone would listen. He was shouted down in Parliament or just ignored. And I think that Netanyahu's gone through much the same thing in the last decade or more, where he's kind of a voice crying in the wilderness about these things.
And Netanyahu's been clear, too, about ISIS equals Hamas equals Iran. Is that right?
Right. In other words, radical Islam is a kind of amorphous unit, but it's together wants to destroy and make war with the West, which is Judeo-Christian biblical values, freedom of expression, freedom of thought,
right.
freedom of worship.
Well, this weekend in Washington, Christians will be rallying at the White House to show their support for Israel.
Right.
Do these kind of protests make any difference?
Well, I think they do. You know, it's more than a protest. I think it's a getting together of people of common cause. You know and it isn't just a political thing. I think sometimes, Wendy, that we think of these marches or rallies the same way you would for women's rights or something like that.
Yeah.
Standing for Israel is something biblical. It's really goes back 4,000 years to Genesis 12, saying, "I will bless those who bless thee and curse those who would curse thee." And so, in that sense, it's Christians physically standing up and standing together for God's promises for Israel. And that was to bring the Israeli people back to the land that He gave them.
Well, they certainly need the support right now. John, how else can Christians support Israel right now?
Well, I think prayer is the obvious first thing. Just praying for the peace of Jerusalem as the Bible commands, and also becoming informed that there really is an effort to go against Judeo-Christian values. This isn't just some political war that's going on. This is something that it has its roots in a spiritual war.
All right. Well, John Waggy, thanks so much for your insights. We always appreciate it.
Thanks, Wendy.
It has been a busy week for Israel at the UN. The Jewish state is suggesting the international body recognize a Jewish holy day as an official UN holiday. Once again, here's Chris Mitchell.
Israel is often singled out at the United Nations for condemnation. Now the Jewish state wants the world body to do something positive. Recognize Yom Kippur as an official UN holiday.
We thought that this was the right moment to recognize also the most important day in the Jewish calendar as being a day which belongs to the whole of humanity and not only to the Jewish people.
There are 10 official holidays at the United Nations, including Christmas, Good Friday, and there's also 2 Muslim holidays. And there are also so-called world days, including Buddhist holidays and the Persian New Year. But so far, no recognition of the Jewish holy days. The book of Leviticus says, "The Day of Atonement shall be a holy convocation for you. You shall afflict your souls, and you shall do no work on that same day, for it is the Day of Atonement to make atonement for you before the Lord your God."
It's the Day of Atonement because Judaism, at the end of the day, is also at the origin of Christianity and Islam.
Foreign Ministry spokesman Emmanuel Nachshon describes it as the Jewish people's legacy to humanity.
It gives Judaism also its right place among the other important religions.
About 60 countries, including the U.S. and the Christian group called the European Coalition for Israel, support Israel's request.
Jewish people should be recognized for their holidays. Yom Kippur in particular should be it has a message which goes beyond Judaism.
The request faces a lot of bureaucratic hurdles. It's unlikely the UN would create an 11th day off, mainly due to financial reasons. Yom Kippur could replace a U.S. holiday like Labor Day, or alternate with one of them. So far, the main objection comes from Arab states. Nachshon says recognizing Yom Kippur could help to ease relations with the UN.
We are under the impression that Israel is being singled out in a variety of issues and mostly in a political context. And by giving an official recognition to the most important Jewish holiday, it will be also a step of reconciliation, and it will make our belonging to the UN and our cooperation with the UN much easier.
Israel and the Jewish world mark Yom Kippur this Saturday. By next year, they hope the commemoration includes the international community as well. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. After more than 18 years of hard work, Elam Ministries and Wycliffe Bible translators have launched a new Farsi language Bible. Elam founder Sam Ygnazar says his organization expects to print and distribute more than 300,000 copies within the next 3 years, most of them for use inside Iran. Though it's a closed Muslim country, Iran is home to one of the fastest growing churches in the world today. The Islamic Republic had only 500 Christians back in 1979. Today, because of expanded satellite television and internet use, some estimate that number could be as high as 750,000 believers.
Coming up, political protests rock Hong Kong. What role is the church playing?
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. 8 years ago, my husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Inside every child is a hero, a leader, a friend to others, someone who helps out, who does the right thing, who dreams of what they can be, but they still need our help.
What should I do? What should I say? How should I feel?
That's where Superbook comes in. It provides moral and spiritual truths through situations children can relate to, teaching God's Word to the children you love. Join the Superbook DVD Club and receive Superbook's newest episodes as they're available, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25. Get Superbook today and watch the miracles happen.
Religious freedom advocates pressed President Obama to address religious rights issues with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi this week. But economics and trade dominated the agenda during his visit to Washington. There was no discussion of religious freedom, at least not publicly. Hardwired President Tina Ramirez expressed disappointment, telling Gary Lane that persecution is getting worse in India.
Violence is increasing against Muslims and Christians. And last year, when I met with the head of the Christian Businessmen's Association for all of India, he said, Tina, we're not trying to change the law or get justice anymore. We're just preparing for persecution.
Then what should people do about it? What can our viewers do?
It is very naive for any policymaker to think that a democracy can survive without religious freedom. It's simply not possible. And so individuals need to talk to their congressmen and make it a priority. And if they don't, then it's not going to happen in our bilateral relationship. As we've seen in Iraq, if we ignore it, the situation will only grow worse.
And to hear more with Tina Ramirez, you can log on to Gary's blog called The Global Lane at cbnnews.com.
Hong Kong's leader has agreed to meet with pro-democracy advocates after a week of public protest. Tens of thousands of demonstrators have been blocking city streets, calling for more input in selecting the territory's leader and less interference from China. China is watching the situation closely and might intervene if the protests get out of control. Anger at Beijing is one reason why Hong Kong's Christian community is strongly supporting the protest. Before he left on assignment, I spoke with senior international correspondent George Thomas about the church's role in the protests. How strongly is the church behind this democracy movement in Hong Kong?
Look, significant numbers are, it's been led by the student protest movement. I mean, it's huge numbers, 30, 40,000 of them. Majority of them are youth. The church is playing a significant role, Ephraim. You've got people out there day in, day out, they're holding prayer vigils. They have these tents where people can come for prayer. Christians are handing out water, food, and meeting some of the needs of not just the demonstrators, but also the police officers, law enforcement. So on both sides of the barricade, they are playing a significant role. They see this as their moment, in this pivotal moment in the history of this territory. They want to play a role in it.
Now, the leader of this movement is a remarkable young man. Tell us a little bit about him and his background.
Incredible. Joshua Wong is 17 years old, and he has overnight, in essence, emerged as the face of this student protest movement. And he's a very strong believer. His parents are Protestant Christians. It's interesting, some of the bios on him shed light in terms of how his parents would take him to some of the poorer neighborhoods of Hong Kong and expose him to the plight and the suffering of Chinese people living in Hong Kong, and from a very early age talked about the importance of social justice and giving back to those who are needy. And he has risen through the ranks and really has become a vocal critic against China.
Wow, at 17, amazing. Yeah. Now, other religious leaders are also speaking out?
They are. You know, you've got the Catholic, the Lutherans, Protestant communities that are, in essence, saying, listen, they see this as a moment to send a very clear message to China, specifically from the point of view of religious freedom. They see they've experienced for many, many years incredible religious freedom on the territory, and they want to maintain that. They don't want to see Chinese interference, not just from a political standpoint, Ephraim, but also from a religious standpoint. And so they are making their voice very, very clear and really saying to the mainland, we do not want the mainland to be involved in the economics and the political as well as just the religious affairs of the country.
As you indicate, Hong Kong is a former British colony,
Correct.
so it enjoys remarkable freedom in terms of religious freedom.
Yeah.
Do you think that China would crack down on religious freedom in Hong Kong?
I think everybody's anxious. They're making, the members of the press and political pundits are making similarities, drawing similarities between the 1989 pro-democracy crackdown on the streets of Tiananmen Square. They're making the similarities, drawing similarities between the two. You don't know, because China is, again, the Chinese government says we are firmly standing behind the person that has been elected.
We'll be watching, as always. George Thomas, thank you so much for your insight.
Welcome to, a pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you.
Coming up, actress Reese Witherspoon talks about her latest movie. You'll meet two of these children when we take you behind the scenes with the cast of The Good Lie.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
CBNnews.com. News you want, when you want, 24/7. Stay current with up-to-the-minute stories.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News, New York.
I don't have to wait for my news anymore.
CBNnews.com, at your fingertips all day long.
I only watch the stories I want to see.
I find the story, I click on it, and boom, I'm there.
Embassy in Washington, Eric Stackelbeck, CBN News.
The source for your news, CBNnews.com.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. 8 years ago, my husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Welcome back. Thousands of young men escaped war in Sudan by immigrating to America. They are often called the Lost Boys of Sudan.
A new film based on their story is now in theaters called The Good Line, as I learned in my visit with the producers. The film took 11 years to complete.
More than 20,000 children escaped Sudan's deadly second civil war by walking thousands of miles to freedom. At least 4,000 of these lost boys of Sudan eventually made it to the United States. Ger Dewani is one of them.
When the civil war came, and find me there. When we have to go to Ethiopia by foot, that's the place where my journey really began, to Ethiopia in 1987.
7 years later, Dewani began high school in Des Moines, Iowa, earned a basketball scholarship, then became a fashion model and actor. His latest role...
Hey, you're, Jeremiah.
Jeremiah, right. Where are you going?
To my home.
...is a fictional account of the Lost Boys' journey, adjustment to American life, and the unique bumps on the road.
May I ask, what credential is required to drive a car?
Well, you have a driver's license. You practice, and then you pass the test. Whoa, slow down. Left. Okay, now just stop. Whoa, put the brakes! You okay?
Oh, I think you should just stick to walking.
We sat down with Dewani and his castmates before The Good Lies premiere.
Ger, you actually are from South Sudan. You were a child soldier. You were a refugee. How true to reality is the film?
I have so many titles under my name. Yeah, the story is very close to me. It came right from where I'm from. And in the center of it is our life experiences as the boys who really fled the country in 1987 by foot all the way to Ethiopia with no food to little. It was just a whole chaos was going on in 1991, where sometimes I wonder if people knew about what was going on in 1991. And then here we are now, we're making movies about 1991 and the same problem is still going on.
More than 2 million have died in Sudan's civil war. It's a statistic and a story that drew Academy Award-winning actress Reese Witherspoon to the project.
You're giving me the check back in 6 months speech?
She plays a counselor, helping 3 lost boys find jobs in Kansas City.
Your character, if you could only describe her in one word, how would you describe her?
Feisty.
Feisty.
So I'm going to try and get you more job interviews. It's not going to be easy.
I have faith, Yardit.
Yardit?
This is a special name for you.
For me?
Yes, it had great cultural significance.
What does it mean?
It means great white cow.
Okay. Well, it's better than a lot of things I've been called.
What is it about this role that made you want to do it?
The script was beautiful. It just really told the story of the Lost Boys of Sudan in a beautiful way, the struggle of these children traveling thousands of miles across the desert just to find safety.
The film begins with a look at that harrowing escape. Sudanese children walking hundreds of miles, crossing bodies of water, braving heat exposure. And boys weren't the only ones to make the journey. Kuth Wheel makes her acting debut in this film.
We may not know the exact day we were born.
As the Lost Boys' sister, Abitel.
Brings me to you, Kuth. You actually are from Sudan. You were in a refugee camp. You lost your dad in the war in Sudan in 1993, right? I don't even know where to go. I mean, how do you act in this film knowing your personal history? I mean, all that you've endured.
I mean, for me, besides my own personal history, I felt that it brought closure, in a sense, like for everyone that had gone through this. And it's still going through it today. And it was a journey to learn about myself. It's so inspiring to see these children go through this and somehow come out of it laughing, in a sense. And I learned so much about my own history that I didn't necessarily know because I immigrated to the U.S. as a child.
With such close ties to Sudan, the Good Lies cast hopes American audiences will learn and laugh at this story, ripped from the emotional pages of real life.
Let my brother be taken away by soldiers instead of me. The Good Lie hits theaters across the U.S. right now. You can see more pictures and interviews at my Facebook page as well.
Well, you've seen it. What did you think? What did you think?
It's a very good film, and another part of the film that I really, really like is it helps to explain the church's role in bringing the Lost Boys of Sudan to America. Beautiful.
And Reese Witherspoon?
Is great.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
We all want to live in the favor and anointing of God. We want His wisdom to solve problems and His provision for all we need. The Bible tells us the Lord has put eternity in our hearts. Each of us wants the certainty of heaven, to know our lives have purpose and that we are playing a vital role in accomplishing His plan for all mankind.
In Pat and Gordon Robertson's latest DVD teaching, Living Under God's Blessing, you'll discover how to receive wisdom to solve today's problems, the keys to provision for meeting all your needs, and how you can be a part of His plan for the world today. Call now to receive Living Under God's Blessing, featuring the 3-time Emmy-nominated series, Made in Israel.
May God bless you, and may you enjoy and live under the blessing of the Lord always.
Living Under God's Blessing, available now.
And finally today, a man's wife and son vanish along with millions of others.
That's right. It's the cataclysmic plot in the new movie Left Behind, starring Nicolas Cage. I recently sat down with actor Alec Ramey, who stars in the film, based on the popular Left Behind book series.
And I went in and read for the part, and it blew me away because this guy is of the Islamic faith. He's a good guy. He's obviously has good morals, and he's portrayed as a man that is there to help.
I think what we should all be doing right now is saying a prayer.
A prayer? A prayer to who?
To God.
Who's God? Yours or mine?
Just to God.
This message is not focusing on a Muslim, especially with what's going on nowadays. It's letting you know that if you don't believe in Jesus Christ and you haven't accepted Him, then this is what's going to happen.
That's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, indeed.
Well, Left Behind is now in theaters across the U.S. And for more of my interviews with Alec and the cast, Nicolas Cage and Jordan Sparks as well, you can go to our CWN Facebook page. A lot of big stars in this movie. A lot of controversy because some people, are about the rapture.
Absolutely.
But it will make you think about where you're going to spend eternity.
Indeed, indeed.
A lot of great movies to go see this weekend.
You got it. That's it for this week's Christian World News.
Thanks for joining us. From all of us here, goodbye and God bless you.